My professional obsession is understanding the dynamics of highly obvious, probable, impactful risks that typically don't get their due, and getting people to recognize how surprisingly vulnerable humans are to things that many of us wrongly assume we've got covered. It started with writing about sovereign debt and credit risk in emerging markets. When I became head of the World Policy Institute in New York in 2007, I spent much of my days thinking about organizational risks and governance, especially when the great financial crisis hit shortly after the think tank was relaunched as an independent organization after 16 years as part of a university. After another think tank stint at the Chicago Council on Global Affairs, I started Gray Rhino and Company. Now I focus full-time on helping organizations and governments understand what makes the difference when leaders and teams acknowledge and respond to risks, and how they can do better. Over time, my interest has shifted to include not only the big policy risks, but also the roots of our individual beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors involving risk, and how they interact with the decisions that governments and organizations make. I wrote about policy and business dangers in my 2016 book, The Gray Rhino: How to Recognize the Obvious Dangers We Ignore. The title came from the term I coined in 2012, shortly after Greece and its creditors reached a landmark agreement to avoid a catastrophic default. The Gray Rhino concept was a tool to explore why some of us step up to avert a crisis, while others let themselves get flattened. By using an animal image, following the tradition of Aesop and other storytellers, I hope to stimulate an emotional connection to the 2-ton-plus horned dangers charging at us, and to remind us all that we're not nearly as good as we'd like to think at getting out of the way. I also wanted people to realize that not only is there no shame in recognizing this all-too-human failure, but that being aware of how vulnerable we are taps into a powerful source of strength, using the rhino's weight to carry us forward instead of trampling us. My work in global finance and policy led me to the question of what made the difference between government and business leaders who downplayed, neglected, denied, or outright ignored obvious risks on the one hand, and on the other, the decision-makers who acted in time to head off or at least minimize threats to their economy or security. A related popular metaphor, the black swan, described in an eponymous book about highly improbable events, caught on during the 2007 to 2009 Great Financial Crisis. The black swan rightly inspired people to think harder about how prone we are to getting sideswiped by unimaginable events and crises that take us by surprise. But people started looking so hard for the unforeseeable, by definition a fool's errand, that they became even more likely to miss the often avoidable problems that are right in front of us, and which we have a better chance at averting. This passive, fatalistic mindset paradoxically increased risks by giving financial professionals and policymakers an easy out. Ah, black swan, nobody saw it coming. In July 2017, the Chinese government employed the Gray Rhino just as I had hoped policymakers might use the term I coined, to help draw attention to the need to deal promptly with obvious risks. During the National Financial Work Conference, held every 5 years to shape economic policy, high-level government officials discussed the importance of avoiding highly likely Gray Rhino risks and announced their intent to head them off. The official newspaper, People's Daily, reinforced the message with a front-page editorial using the Gray Rhino to signal a coming crackdown on financial risks. Traders took the warning seriously, driving down the prices of shares in companies seen as risky by around 5% in a single day. The Gray Rhino quickly went global, with headlines appearing in South Korea, Malaysia, Qatar, Turkey, Vietnam, Belgium, France, Germany, Luxembourg, Italy, Spain, Portugal, the UK, Brazil, and all across Latin America and Africa. As it was intended to do, the metaphor had focused attention and political will on highly obvious, potentially avoidable financial dangers.